Hello, hope you're doing well. Today was a rather quick day. First things first, for the Unity Learning Pathway coursework, we began work on a project where we have a game in which objects are thrown into the air and you need to click them before they fall off the bottom of the screen. You can see what we've got done so far. It'll be playing in the bottom left, and you'll notice that we have cans, pizza slices, bombs, and there was one other thing. Yes, steaks. Just randomly being spawned. They're going to have different forces applied to them. They're going to have different torque applied to them, and they're going to have different spawn positions along the x-axis. So for the time being, that's all the functionality we have, right? We have them despawning or being destroyed when I click them, and also you'll notice with the zoomed out view up here, they will reach a certain point and then despawn right there. And that's what we got. In the future, more functionality will be added. You'll see that in the next video. But I wanted to address a couple of interesting things that came up today. First and foremost, of course, being that the Unity Learn Pathway coursework, it does not utilize the new Unity input system, despite being for 6.0, which I'm aware I would be able to, if I wanted, gain access to the way input used to be handled. But I would prefer to learn and familiarize myself with the input system, which I do in all of my projects. So that has been a constant challenge throughout the coursework, is incorporating the input system where it is not utilized in the coursework. Sometimes that takes a little more effort, but I think it's worth it. So what we've done here, and what would have normally have been the case originally, there would have been this is the target script. This script is attached to, this script is on the prefabs for each of these items that would be launched. So on here, there would be a private void on mouse down, and that would just check if you click on the object, and if you had, this is overriding the Unity method of the same name, you would just destroy game object, and that's it. That's all they would have done. However, that is not compatible with the input system. So here's what we're doing instead. First, we have a reference to the camera. We've called that underscore camera. Next, we're assigning that to the camera in the start method. So far, nothing too crazy. And then we have in the input system actions, we have one that we've made called click. That's just a button action type for the left mouse button. All right, and then now in the script, first thing we do is we check to see if click has not been triggered. And if click has not been triggered, we return, right? We don't want to waste time doing all this stuff if the click hasn't been triggered. Afterwards, we get a vector 2. We're calling it click position. This is going to be the position where the click took place on the screen. And then we're raycasting from the camera to the location of that click. Then we check to see if the raycast actually hit something, or at least in this case, we're checking if it did not hit something that we wanted to hit. If it did not hit something we wanted to hit, again, we're getting out of here so we don't waste time with the rest of the method. Then lastly, we're getting a reference to the object that we raycasted into. And then lastly, we're destroying the object that we clicked on and raycasted into. So that's what we're doing with the input system in lieu of the on mouse down override that was present in the coursework. And this was inspired by the comments that were very helpful in the coursework, recommending to do this sort of a solution with the input system. Other than that, everything else is working great, just as expected. Just a couple of tweaks to the speed at which the objects were rotating, because they were spinning way too fast and it was making me sick with the recommended torque values of 10. But other than that, yeah. So that's it for this, the coursework. Looking into the personal project here, there's a couple of things. Once it loads. very good. So, a couple of things in here. First things first, you'll notice we've got a couple of new scripts. That includes an adventurer spawner. It's going to be an object that manages the spawning of adventurers with randomized attributes. We have the same for enemies. It's going to manage the spawning of enemies with randomized attributes. Other than that, nothing too fancy. I have a folder where I'm going to start including components. I haven't started doing that yet. And then the other thing is we've added a new input system interact input system action. That's going to be how we will be speaking with the adventurers, right? We come up here and we would speak to them. Let me lock my mouse in. There we go. And we would interact with them that way. And also, I've kind of mocked up what I expect the player stomping grounds to look like here, right? We have these different modules here, and each of these you would walk up to them and you would interact with them and you would perform whatever action they have for you there, right? So the game flow would be like you come to the adventurer, you talk to them, you hear what their complaints are, and then you would get their gear or their drops. You would take that and you would be kind of like carrying it with you. And then back here, for example, this is representing a storage crate, right? So if they've given you like 100 goblin bones or something, like 50 iron ingots or something, you would just come back here, you store them for later. Or if you needed them, you would come back here and grab them for use. Over here, this is a map. This would represent the locations that are in the game. For example, perhaps there's mountains, perhaps there's caves where goblins are, perhaps there's swamps where the undead are, something like that. That would just represent the world. And this right here would just be like a desk. It would have like a bestiary. And these are things that would fill out as you progress in the game, right? You speak with an adventurer, they say that their gear was burned to shreds. Come to find out, this was the work of a slime. So you could record this in the bestiary, that the slimes can burn people's gear with acid damage, perhaps, as an example. And then also on the map, you could take note, where had they gone where they encountered these in the first place? So that's the first thing in terms of diagnosing what sort of situations you expect your adventurers to encounter, and that'll influence your decisions as to what you do to their gear. All right, and then lastly, this would be just, a furnace. You would use this perhaps for smelting ores, or for heating up objects to be smithed, or also perhaps for salvaging gear into components. Also, and lastly, this would just be the workbench. This is perhaps you wanted to augment people's gear with components, right? Like those goblin bones from earlier. Perhaps they, for whatever reason, they conferred some sort of defensive bonus to your gear. So like, let's say you have a cloth tunic, gives you 5 defense. You put on some goblin bones onto it, increase that defense to 7, something like that. And so that's what we got so far. So I will be assigning each of these actual behavior. It's going to be very rudimentary, nothing too fancy, but right, this will be capable of holding a list of game objects that'll be gear and items, gear and resources is the word I'm looking for. This right here, the furnace, perhaps I'd like to split its functions into different objects so that each one is only doing one thing, but I'd like, the furnace at least to be able to take ore in, convert that ore over time into ingots, and then to output those ingots for me to take and then put them over there or use over here. And then over here, I would like to be able to smith raw materials into products, right? So perhaps iron ingots into iron plate. And then I would also like, again, I might split this functionality into a different table. Perhaps I do what I just described as an anvil and put it over here. And then this one right here, I would like to take components, resources from my storage or from the adventurers, and then also the gear from the adventurers, and then combine them in order to produce specific output. And again, all rudimentary, but that's going to be one of my top goals coming up, is just to add basic functionality to all of these things and also to flesh out my components. All right, yeah, this is a quick one today. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.